Ah, the humble browser. Web browsers for most of us have become so ubiquitous, a tool that we just use every day that I think in a lot of ways it slipped into the background. We don't think that we're using an application anymore. It's just how we use our computer. It's really become the operating system for the internet. And as a result, I think we've started to take a lot of the use of the browser for granted. We don't spend a lot of time thinking about upgrades or new ways of doing things within the browser. So let's address that today and see if we can't improve our relationship with the web browser, specifically in this case, of course, being Google Chrome. So my goals for today's webinar are to help us catch up on changes, but primarily I want to improve our privacy, our security, improve our organization, make us more organized, improve our productivity using the browser, find ways to do things more efficiently, and recognize if there are new capabilities in Chrome that you may not be aware of. I'd like to shed a little bit of light into that particular corner as well. So those are our goals today. And I think you may be surprised with just how many different things how much Chrome has changed since last time you really dove in and took a look at how you do things in Chrome. So we're going to begin with probably one of the areas that's most important to all of us, which is privacy and security. Now, you've got to recognize when we use Chrome is no different than any other web-based app. We make the devil's bargain when we use these tools. By the devil's bargain, we exchange our personal information, our privacy, we exchange a percentage of that for efficiency, for convenience. So most of the tools that we're going to look at today allow us to be more efficient and more productive using Chrome. We pay a tax for that, and that tax is our information, is we have to share more with Google. And some of that is for them to make money, but other times that we have to share this information is so that they can actually deliver the services which we're asking for. Now let's get into our privacy and security settings. Now, for all of these different settings, as far as our privacy and security goes, we should take a look at the preferences menu. Now you can find it here under the Chrome menu. You can also always find the preferences under the 3-dot menu on the far right-hand side there. You can go in and you can go into settings, and preferences and settings are the exact same thing. I don't know why Google does that. Under the Chrome menu, it's preferences. Under the 3-dot menu, it's settings. I think it's just to confuse us. What should not be confusing is if we go into the privacy and security tab, it should look very familiar because you probably have looked at these things before about how you deal with your history, how you deal with what information can be shared with others, how you deal with cookies on your site. So that hasn't changed too much over the last little while. What is, I don't know if this has changed, but has become increasingly important is how you handle the autofill features that are built in. And we do that under the settings menu by going into autofill. And here we see the 3 areas that Google in Chrome will make us more efficient by filling in, by anticipating what it is that we're working on, and then providing the repeating data that goes into different fields. Now, this is typically speaking for online forms, where we have passwords that we need to log into websites, where we have payment methods, paying our credit card and having the credit card information, and also our personal information, our addresses, that sort of stuff, where it autofills all of those. And you've probably noticed, you've definitely noticed that autofill increasingly offers you different options for filling in information. What you might not be aware of is how much control you have over that entire process. And that's done here in the autofill area. Now I'm going to talk about passwords last. I'll start by talking about the addresses. You can go in here and you can modify the addresses and all the information that's shared, and you can add additional addresses here, which you can use, and you can actually manually fill in the information, or it will scrape the information from when you fill in information on other forms. But that, as we've all noticed, saves us a lot of time when we're putting in our shipping information, etc. That's fairly benign. I think most of us are fairly comfortable having our addresses autofill. What we might not be as comfortable with is having our payment methods autofill, where our credit card information is automatically filled in. Usually it won't have that final security code on the back, but everything else, which again saves us a lot of time. And you can either disable that or you can add other payment methods here inside of the payment method area. Password manager. Now, with the password manager in the past, I have recommended that you not use the browser-based password manager. My opinion on that I have to tell you, it's been shaken and it may have changed, or it has changed as far as my attitude towards it. And what's caused my attitude towards it to change is what's happened out there in the real world. LastPass recently had a hack. They were hacked and they were quite poor at communicating it to us. And for a lot of us, our password manager is one of the tools that it's really hard to extricate ourselves from. We've really built a lot of equity in a password manager, so we're stuck with that password manager, although we certainly can change, but it's a lot of work to change. And I was always of the opinion that using a dedicated password manager like a LastPass or a 1Password or a KeePass was better than using the password manager that's built into the browser. Now, it is still, in some instances, better, but as far as for just basically getting into different websites and logging in as a personal user, I'm not sure that there's that much of an advantage as far as our security goes using a dedicated password manager that we pay for and have a separate application for than trusting the one which is built into Google. And the reason is that they're all being attacked all of the time anyways. So that I would say it's just as much of a chance of your information being compromised if you store your passwords inside of Google as if you store them inside of LastPass or 1Password. But to me, it seems pretty much of a muchness as far as the security goes now between Google and between the dedicated password managers. Now, where I do differ on my opinion, saying you can use the password manager here, and if you feel comfortable with it, go ahead and do it. And this is where you manage all of your passwords. But where you may still want to use a dedicated password manager is if you have to share your password with others. What the password manager inside of inside of Chrome does not do well is allow you to create and share, as we do with LastPass, where I share different passwords with my team so they can get into some of our corporate accounts. Or you can do that with your spouse so that you can both have access to, say, your bank accounts or other things like that. It doesn't do a good job of managing that process. But as far as just straight up managing your password and saving your passwords and whether or not you're as secure as elsewhere, I am retracting my previous position of do not use your browser-based password manager. And if it works for you, go ahead and use it. Moving on into the other features inside of the preferences menu, we can see that we have performance, appearance, search engine. Those are the three that I'll touch on briefly. Your performance tab will help your browser perform more snappily. Is that a term? Snappily? It allows, we all know that we open multiple web browser windows and they become system resource hogs. And this is how Chrome can help mitigate some of that laziness on our part of having multiple tabs open. And one of those is through something called Memory Saver, which is actually, it's a cool feature. What it does is if it sees that there's a tab that's inactive, is it stops refreshing it, so it stops using less resources. Now, sometimes you have tabs open that you want to have active all the time because they're communications or they're being constantly updated, and you don't want to wait for it to refresh when you go to it. So you can actually keep different sites active just by adding different sites here. And so I've added my Asana, which is my task manager, and I've added my mind mapping site here. So you can add multiple sites to it, so that they are constantly being updated. So that's a performance hack that you can do that's going to improve the performance slightly. I'm not sure you'll actually notice the improvement, but it is there. Similarly, if you're on a notebook, how the browser uses battery power, you can control here. The appearance is just how it looks, but in a few moments, we're going to talk about productivity, and one of the aspects there is being able to navigate through organization of your browser. One of the things you might want to do at some point is turn on what's called the home button. I'll talk about that more in a few moments, but if you take a look up here right next to the Omnibar, if I turn on the home button, you can see that I have a little home there, and so I can determine an address, a place that I go to when I click on the home button. It doesn't have to be Google. It can be any site that we want. You can set up as a home button, and that's really just an efficiency thing that you might want to set up. One area of appearance that I personally appreciate is as my eyesight has deteriorated as the years have advanced, I have changed my font size from the recommended size to large on my browser, which just makes it easier for me to read my browser, especially when I'm on my notebook. I find it to be very valuable to have a larger font size, and you can set that there for those of you who are looking for a slightly larger font. So that's all set up inside of the appearance. And finally, a lot of people don't recognize, but you have a choice of which search engine you use when you go to search. Even if you're in Chrome, it will default to Google, but you can choose a different search engine if you choose, and you can add other search engines as well to the Omnibar so that you can search by going to different search engines or even different direct websites as opposed to the one that's the default. So you have that control set up for you just by choosing a different search engine as well. Final thing that I'll mention to you is if we take a look down here at the very bottom of the preferences or the settings, if you take a look at the extensions option, here are the different extensions that you've installed in Chrome, or that I've installed in Chrome in this particular case, to extend Chrome's capabilities. And there's a lot of them in here. Now I test out a lot. So you can see only the ones that have the toggle switch to the right-hand side are actually active. And they appear up here in my menu bar next to the Omnibar. And for the most part, some of them are hidden or they only appear when you're at certain websites. But all of these different extensions, the more that you have turned on, the more sluggish Chrome will be. So making sure that you only have the ones that you're actually using actively turned on, that's going to improve the performance dramatically within Chrome. And a lot of us can just get lazy. We install different extensions to test them out to see if they're working or to see what they do, and then we don't actually end up using them. So it's a good idea to just go through, see which ones you have turned on, and turn off the ones that you don't use. You don't necessarily have to remove them. Just by turning them off will improve the performance of Chrome. But if it's something that you're never going to use again, then just go ahead and remove it. You can always go back into the Google Chrome store and install it again if you decide you need it in the future. But going through and making sure that you only have the extensions that you're actually using and actually benefit you is going to help to improve the performance of your browser. We can improve our efficiency a lot within Google Chrome by paying attention to how we organize our installation of Google Chrome. And Chrome's menu system, especially the menu bars, etc., are quite customizable. And you can, I think, really improve your efficiency by organizing how you use Chrome. Now, if you take a look at my installation of Chrome here, you can see that it looks probably quite a bit different than yours does. Obviously, I'm going to have different extensions installed. But this little bar here, right underneath the Omnibar, this is something that's called the bookmark bar. And this is it's an area that you can just grab any website, any web location, drag it down, drop it, and it will appear, that page will appear here, or that website will appear inside of the bookmarks bar, which allows you to then quickly return to it. It's a really nice and efficient way of quickly bookmarking something. But I like to use it as the place that's a roster or a menu of all of the websites that I need to go to on a regular basis. And if I have the full name, like when you drop it in, it gives you the web address and the name, and it takes up some space here inside of the browser bar, which informs you of what it is. But you notice there's also an icon that it shows exactly what it is. If I had too many of these, what happens is I end up in an overflow situation where if I take a look here on the right-hand side and click on my mouse, these are all of the different folders and different website locations that I have installed in my bookmarks bar. And so it really slows down your efficiency if I have to go and hunt and peck my way through this list in order to find them. So I want as many of them, of the ones that I use on a regular basis, to appear here in the menu bar as I can. And the way that I do that is by just using the icon and hopefully that I can recognize exactly what the icon is. And how I do that is I right click on it on the bookmark after it's been dropped into the bookmark bar. I edit it, and then I can actually take the name of it right out. Just delete it, and now all that will appear is the icon. And now over time, you'll recognize exactly what each icon is, so that if I need to go into my webinar software, I see here is the demo link. I click on that and it's going to take me right into demo. You can see underneath the web URL is being identified there as we look at that. So this is my hack that allows me to have at my fingertips dozens, maybe not dozens, but probably over a dozen of my most commonly used websites that I have to go to, or services accounts that I have to go to, and they're all here. Now, if I have to get rid of anything, just right click on it, delete it, and you can organize and clean it up. So that's my space hack, how I add some nice organization to my browser bar. And you notice here that I've even got a folder. This is all of the different projects that I happen to be working on and the documents around those. So again, it's a very quick way of me getting back to the most important information that I have. One feature that I think most of us aren't aware of is something called tab groups. Now, what this is, if you are the sort of person who has multiple tabs open all the time on your browser, and you end up in the top with just a huge list of different open tabs, you can actually group those into different kind of family groups in any session that you're in, so that you can, again, better organize all of the different tabs that you have open. And this is all you do for this. Let's say we wanted one for all of the different productivity or the different settings that I'm working on, is you right click and you create add tab to new group. And what that does is it will take this tab and allow you to give it a name, and we'll call this tools. And I create the tools. Oh, I should have, while I'm there, show you that you can actually give it a color, and that creates this tab group. Now, if I wanted to add this to the tab group, that the tools one appears here. And so now that then becomes part of that group. Now, once you've got multiple tab groups open, it doesn't seem to be too much of a benefit here just looking, other than the fact that it's underlined these two projects sites that I'm working on together. But if you click on the word, it then will reduce the clutter and reduce the number of tabs that you see, and just compress them so that if we click on it again, it will then pop them out. So if you have, say, one for productivity for your email and your calendar, etc., all under one tab, you can have those closed all the time except when you need it, when you go to open it. Now, this is for those of you who have multiple tabs open, and it's also session based. Unfortunately, you can't save this as a preset so that every time you open your browser, it automatically opens these tabs into this collection. But instead, what you do, you have to do it each time. So if you are the sort of person that wants to have multiple tabs open and you leave your browser running for great lengths of time, using tab groups might be something that adds to your efficiency. Now, similarly, but different, is the ability to pin tabs. In that case there, this is where we take a tab, and if we pin it, it's always going to be there. We go pin, and now it's always pinned to a location. It's always pinned into the browser, but it also reduces it down into just an icon, very similar to what I've done in the bookmark bar. But there we have my Asana available to me as it is pinned, and I can pin multiple tabs to it. Now, different from the grouping of tabs, if you close the web browser and reopen the browser, the pinned tabs will remain there. But recognize that, again, there's just going to be the favicon, the little icon, and it's not going to have the additional text information for any pinned tabs. So again, this is a great way for you to keep the tabs that you use accessible to you all of the time, and should streamline your productivity. Now, tabs in our browser aren't the only thing that we can pin inside of Chrome. We can also pin our extensions. And if we take a look over here on the other side of the Omnibar, we can see all of the different extensions that I have access to. If we click on the little kind of the puzzle piece here, we can go down and we can take any of our extensions that are loaded into Chrome, and we can, by clicking on that little pin there, we can force it to be inside of the bar. So I just added Google Keep, and now it appears here in the menu bar. So it's, again, accessible to me without having to go through a drop-down menu to access that particular extension. The last thing that I want to show you is the startup and homepage, but startup pages and homepage. And for that, we have to go back into our settings. And remember, I mentioned in the appearance that we have the ability here to show the home button. I can turn this on, and if I turn it on, then I can enter a custom web address, and here in this little icon of the home, it will navigate there all of the time. Now, by default, from the old days, that home icon was always there in the browser, and it would just take us to Google for search. But now we can adjust what address it goes to. So you could say send it always, take it to your email, or you could take it anywhere you really want by entering the custom address here. But then it will appear here all of the time inside of the menu bar. Now, there is one other kind of related option that we have, is on startup, you can determine which page or pages load automatically as well. Similar to pinning, but here it's just going to open them up in tabs inside of Chrome. So you can add different pages when you launch Chrome so it doesn't go to the default, which is the Google homepage. You've heard me mention several times today the Omnibar, which is what we used to call the search bar inside of Google Chrome. And the Omnibar has a lot of different capabilities now built in. And I'm going to give you inside of the shared note a list of all of the different, or as many of the different things that the Omnibar will do for you, but it will give you all of these different shortcuts. So watch this. If you say needed to time something, if you needed to put a timer on for 10 minutes, you can go and search for an app and put a timer in, or you can just type in timer and then say 5 minutes. And then right there, boom, it starts a timer. And you can have it view as a stopwatch, or you can have it as a timer. And it's going to count down, and then you can even have it give you a little alarm and a little bing at the end. So this kind of just super intelligent, simple functionality, there's multiple ways that we can do this. I just showed you the timer. We can also, how often do you go and navigate to a website in order to see what the weather is? You just type in weather and then put where it is. And there's the weather in 100 Mile House. It's giving me the current conditions. So again, just a really quick way for you to access the sort of thing that you would normally navigate your way to a website, put in the location. The Omnibar takes care of that for us. And I'm not going to spend more time on it because you get the idea how intelligent it is and how efficient it is. It'll give you directions. You can do it for map. How do I get from A to B? You can use it for all sorts of conversions, be it weight, be it currency conversions. It'll do all of those sorts of things, as well as I've got a list of, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 other things that you can do in the Omnibox that you should take a look at, and something there might resonate with you. Now, the last thing that we'll take a look at today is improved productivity. And we'll start by showing you the Chrome side panel. And I think a lot of you have never seen the Chrome side panel. It's something that I honestly have never used, so I had to research it. But here, if we click on that little side panel icon that's up here right next to our extensions, we have this side panel, which has things like, it'll give us a list of all of our bookmarks that we can gain access to and control all of our bookmarks. We can also create a reading list where we save different things, different websites that we wanted to read. So let me open up a new website, and I'll just go to a sports site. And it's something that I want to read later. And if I go here, I can say add to reading list right there. Add tab to reading list. I had to look for it. Making the font bigger does it in the main text area. It doesn't necessarily do it in all of the menus. That's a system preference. But now this has been added. So if you see a website and you, rather than keeping the tab open so that you return to it later, you can save it here in a reading list so that you can return to it to read it later. It's a nice little research tool. It will also track your journeys, where it'll go through all of the different websites that you visited in any session. So if you need to re-navigate your way back through to find a website, it's a form of history that allows you to see your web wanderings and your web journey. So the side panel is a kind of a cute little neat addition. I think it's especially useful for navigating to bookmarks or for that reading list, for being able to save something for you to read in the future. I think it's a pretty valuable tool for that particular feature. Last of all, this is one of the most valuable productivity. Oops, it's my alarm's going off. The alarm that we said earlier. Where is it here? Here it is here. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, unintended consequences. We do our research on our browser, typically speaking, on our computer, and then often we need access to the information that we've researched when we're out and about. And one of the really cool features that I think, again, very few of us use is the ability to sync our browser across devices. Now, we're used to syncing things like having our email available here on our phone at the same time as it's available on our desktop. That's all stuff that we've done for a long time, and we're very comfortable with, and we know how to use that. However, I can go into Google Chrome here. Let me just turn this on. However, if I open Google Chrome here on my phone, it's synced to it's synced to the same account. If I click on the 3-dot menu at the very bottom, I can see the same basic features, the same access to a lot of the same tools, password manager, my download folder, my settings, which is very similar to the same settings that we saw inside of the Chrome browser. And not only does it look the same here, but it's sharing the same data set. You see the reading lists, if I go into the reading list, the TSN, the sports site that I just added to my reading list here in the browser, appears here. It's synced here on my phone. So I can see my most recent tabs, and I can see other things that I've interacted with on my desktop or on my notebook computer, then gets reflected in my mobile installation, whether I'm on an iPad or another tablet or on my smartphone. All of that is synced through in Google inside of Chrome. That, tremendously valuable. Just think about this example. You go to a website, you say, oh, I'd like to read this later. Later on, you're at the doctor's office, you're waiting for your appointment, and you can now go and you can read. You don't have to re-look up the document that you wanted to read or the web page or the article that you wanted to read. It is synced across multiple platforms. I think that as far as your improved productivity, syncing across devices is something that most of us don't use anywhere near as efficiently as we maybe will now that we understand how efficient it is and how it works. All right, let's get to the Q&A.